when you are managing your device, are you going to use Telnet or are you going to use SSH? Well, you shouldn't be using Telnet nowadays because, well, it's too easy for that information to be captured. There's so much information out there and so many tools that can be utilized just by doing a search on your favorite search engine that we want to make sure that all data is being protected in transit so it's not captured, sniffed out, and easily read. If it is captured and sniffed out, then it's going to take another step by those users to actually read the information that was captured. They're going to have to decrypt that information. If it was encrypted or if it was hashed, that information, then they're going to have to reverse that particular hash, which is going to take a relatively long time to do if you've implemented strong security measures for your passwords and for the communication. So instead of using Telnet, which is going to transmit everything in plain text, let's encrypt that information. So therefore, let's use SSH instead of Telnet for remotely managing our devices. SSH is going to require you to have cryptographic keys so that way their encryption can be done. So in order to accomplish that, you set up a domain name on your device. Why? Because the domain name and the host name is going to be utilized when generating the cryptographic keys. We're also going to need usernames and passwords because when using SSH, you are going to be required for a username and password, where Telnet only requires a password at its basic level. So SSH is already stepping up. Not only is it encrypting, but it's also requiring you to use a username and a password for authentication purposes. Here we're generating local cryptographic keys in this case, but in the real world, you're probably using some sort of a certificate server, some external source for your cryptographic keys instead of generating them locally, but they're just giving us an example of that here. So crypto key generate RSA, and the keys we're using are going to be 1024 in this particular case. Why 1024? Well, it's recommended nowadays that you don't go any lower than 1024 for your cryptographic keys. And in most cases, you're hearing a lot of people say, don't go any lower than 2048 even. So definitely, though, 1024 right now should be your minimum key size. Not only that, if you're going to use SSH, you want to use SSH version 2. And in order to use SSH version 2, you got to have a key size of 768 or greater. So you might as well go to 1024 or higher. Now, with our VTY lines, we'll have to adjust how we are performing our authentication in this case. So with our VTY lines, 0 through 4, instead of just saying login, we're going to say login local. Why? Local says use the local username and password database for authentication purposes. And we want to shut off Telnet. So how do we do that? Well, we use the transport input command. The transport input command allows us to identify which protocols can be utilized for remote administration through these VTY lines. So if you type in transport input SSH, it says only allow SSH. If you say transport input Telnet SSH, it says allow Telnet and SSH. It doesn't matter the order you put them in. The order doesn't matter. The key here is to just identify what you want to allow for remote management to these VTY lines. So SSH here will just only allow SSH and completely stop Telnet from being used. And then if we want to use, which we should use, is version 2 of SSH, we type in IP SSH version 2. So make sure, though, that your cryptographic keys you're using are greater than 768 to use SSH version 2.